From the studios here at CATV6 and RobinHoodRadio.com, welcome once again to Simply Sports. My name is Andy Williams. Thank you once again for tuning in. January the 22nd, 2020. A lot of 20s in there. I hope everybody had a great weekend. And very quickly, I want to give a very happy birthday tomorrow to my dad, Chris Williams. My father's going to be turning 57 years old, so if you see Chris Williams out there, make sure you give him a nice big happy birthday to him. So, Dad, happy birthday. I love you. And I hope you have a great week. Okay. So, hang on one second. Okay. Got a lot on the plate today, as I always tend to. Obviously, the Super Bowl is all set, but there were a few other things that caught my eye, preferably in Major League Baseball, but we'll get to that in 1 second. First, we start out, as always, with the local flavor. Housatonic Sports. The Hoosie Boys basketball team dropped to 1-8 with losses to Gilbert, Nottawag, and Wamogo. They have 2 upcoming games, both away at Thomaston and Terryville. Good luck to them. The Hoosie girls basketball team looks like they found some traction with 2 very, very exciting down-to-the-wire wins against both Nottawag and Wamogo to improve to 6-4. Their next 2 games are both at home against Thomaston and Terryville. So good luck to them. Also, the Hoosie hockey team lost to Woodstock Academy on Monday, 3-1, dropping their record to 2-6. They have their next 2 games coming up. Tonight on the road at New Milford, and Monday night at home at Hotchkiss Rink against SGWL. So good luck to them, and good luck to all the Hoosie teams coming up this week. Okay, I'm going to run over a couple of these things before I get into the meat and potatoes part of the show. By the way, if you want to call in, 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200. If you want to come in and talk to me live on the telephone, don't be shy. It's okay. FIFA's president said that this country will be the biggest soccer power in the world within the next 10 years. That country being ours. Now, yes, we already say that, well, we have the best women's soccer team in the world. We obviously do. But the men's soccer team, that's a little suspect. And when you can't even qualify for the World Cup, that's a problem. And the way that they look and how erratically they look so far in the campaign to try to qualify for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, and they're really going to be a soccer power? Now, look, I understand in 2026 that they're going to be... Hold on a second. Before I get to the rest of that, a little bit of breaking news here. The New York Mets have hired their new manager. So, Corey Chapman, if you are tuning in, the Mets do have a new manager. His name is Luis Rojas. I believe he was an ex-Met. I could be wrong on that. Somebody can fact check me on there. But Luis Rojas is the new manager of the New York Mets. So, back to the whole notion that the USA is going to be a big power. Well, yeah, they're hosting the World Cup in 2026, but I mean, a soccer power, really? Both men and women? Women, yeah, of course, but soccer hasn't really developed like the MLS hasn't really developed here in the United States, much like the Premier League, much like La Liga and all the other leagues out in Europe. The USA hasn't gotten that far yet. So they're saying in due time, which I hope it is because I'm a big soccer fan, but I don't know. I hope he's right. I do, but I don't see it. In the Australian Open, in tennis, there were no major upsets so far. They're just starting the opening rounds in either the men's or the women's draw. The big story out there is not really the players, but the air quality due to the Australian wildfires and the tragedy that's going on out there right now. And that's really the big story. Just the poor air, the poor air quality that's going on out there. I know during qualifiers they actually had a couple people actually collapse due to the smoke from the wildfires that were going on miles away. So they said the air quality is good. So we'll see. So now it's a couple days away. The Royal Rumble. Couple days. So now, who are my picks to win the Royal Rumble? Well, to all my wrestling fans out there. Well, for the women, I think you're going to see Shayna Baszler from NXT. And then for the men, I think it's going to be who was once on the main roster but now went back to NXT. I think it's going to be Finn Balor. I think they're going to kind of keep this momentum that they had back at Survivor Series with NXT and keep that going into the Royal Rumble and set up very interesting scenarios going into WrestleMania in April. So, something to look forward to there. In the NHL, as the NHL get ready to head into their All-Star break, Washington and Boston top the East. The Rangers could continue to sit in mediocrity. But again, this is a young team. This is a team that is a long way away from being a good team. Now, they're on the right track with these young kids that they're bringing in. But they have one piece of dead weight, and I hate to say he's a piece of dead weight, but he is, and that's Henrik Lundqvist. And they have to get rid of him. They either have to eat the contract and cut him or trade him, or they're going to be stuck with him for the next year or two. And they're going to sit and swirl in mediocrity until he retires a Ranger. So the Rangers got some decisions to make come the trade deadline. And I think that that's number one on the priority list. Out west, the team that is, or the city that's hosting the All-Star break, the defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues, are the best team out west by a mile. In the Pacific Division, probably the best division in all of hockey. You have Vancouver, who tops the division. However, there are 4 teams 1 point back: Edmonton, Calgary, Arizona, and Vegas, who are just nipping at their heels. And that's going to turn into a dogfight for not only the top 2 spots behind St. Louis and Vancouver, but it's also going to create some scenarios within the wild card in the last 2 spots. So, very interesting what we got coming up within the All-Star break and points after. In the NBA, Milwaukee, the Bucks are the best team in basketball by a mile, 39-6. They lead by 8 games over the surprising Miami Heat right now, who sit second in that division, but they're only 2.5 games up on the 6th place team, Indiana. And you're going to have a big old mess right there between Miami, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Pacers, and it's just one big mess right now in the East. And then you have 7 and 8, Orlando and Brooklyn, who are both sub 500 and are essentially going to get fed to the wolves when it comes playoff time. The Lakers are 34-9, 3.5 games up on the Clippers, their next door neighbors. No, like literally, there's the Laker locker room and there's the Clipper locker room, and they're really right there. But anyway, Denver's 4 games back. Houston went on a slide as of late. They lost 4 in a row. I could tell you why. I said at the beginning of the season, the whole thing with Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and I don't know how much basketball there is to go around between the 2 of them. Well, now we're starting to see it. Russell Westbrook now has pretty much taken charge of that team. And back when they were in perfect harmony, now they seem to be in flux. And that could mean doom and gloom for Houston if this trend continues. I don't think it's going to continue, but again, something to keep in mind. The Boston Celtics this week beat both Milwaukee and the Lakers this week. So, again, I know it's a regular season meeting. And yes, you beat the best 2 teams in the league, but yet you sit 4th in the Eastern Conference in that mess in spots 2 through 6. So basically, whoever comes out of that mess, that 2 through 6 mess, is going to face Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals. And essentially, I said it before, I'll say it again, I still think it's going to be Philadelphia at the end of the day. Zion Williamson comes back tonight against San Antonio. That'll be very interesting. New Orleans has been playing actually pretty good ball as of late. I think they've won like 8 of their last 11 or something along those lines. And now they get Zion Williamson back. Who knows? Maybe New Orleans can creep into the 8th spot. And could you imagine in the playoffs LeBron James versus Zion Williamson? Sign me up for that. Absolutely. Okay. So we got about 15 minutes left. Meat and potatoes part of the show. Anytime you guys want to call in, 860-824-4200, 860-824-4200. Derek Jeter inducted into the Hall of Fame, along with Larry Walker from the Colorado Rockies. Derek Jeter got voted in by 396 out of 397 voters on the Baseball Writers Hall of Fame. Curt Schilling was in third place. He fell just short. I think it was by like 20 votes or something along those lines. Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens fell short around 61% of the vote. You need 75% to get in. And you're saying, well, what's the problem? Well, here's my problem. My problem is with that one writer. And you want to know what the problem I have with that one writer is? Is that one writer who remained anonymous is from Boston. Now, I know the whole New York-Boston thing. Look, they're rivals. I get it. But for God's sakes, Derek Jeter from 1995 to 2014 is the only person in baseball history to have 3,000 hits, over 250 RBIs, and had better than a 300 batting average. Can you name another player with that? Nope, you can't. Derek Jeter's the only one. And you mean to tell me that one Boston writer wanted to leave him off the ballot because he was a Yankee? Give me a break. Derek Jeter should have went in unanimously, just like Mariano Rivera should have went in unanimously. It is a crime and a sin. And to that Boston sports writer, I know you're not watching the show, but if you were, hear me out. You should be fired from your job, and you should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for not putting Derek Jeter on the ballot. Come on. Because he was a Yankee. Makes me sick. Absolutely sick. The only person during the steroid era that played the game the right way, played hard, reminded me a lot of Pete Rose. Went hard every single play. Countless gold gloves. Many Sports Center play. Who can remember the flip? That was probably one of the best plays of all time. The flip when he flipped it to the catcher in Game 5 against Oakland to get Jeremy Giambi at the plate to preserve a 1-0 lead. That dive into the stands against the Red Sox on July the 1st, where he cut his face up, diving for a ball. And how many times did he go into the hole, backhand, fading away, always got the runner every time. That's a Hall of Famer. And that one Boston sports writer doesn't think he's a Hall of Famer? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. Moving on to in baseball. The whole sign stealing scandal has now taken a new turn. It's claimed another victim, Carlos Beltran. He hasn't even managed a game as the New York Mets. As I've reported first, Luis Rojas is now the new manager of the New York Mets. Carlos Beltran did not even manage a game. And now, to go along with this, not only the Dodgers, but the government in Los Angeles, California, is calling on Major League Baseball and both the Houston Astros and the Boston Red Sox organizations to strip themselves, or have Major League Baseball strip them of their World Series championships and give them to the Dodgers. This is a fact. This is a true story. But the LA government has signed, and the fans out in LA and California have signed a petition, and they have made their voices heard online saying that Houston and Boston should be stripped of their titles in 2017 and 2018 because of the sign stealing scandal, and award those two championships to the Dodgers. Stay tuned to see as the sign turns. Super Bowl 54 is all set, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be Kansas City versus San Francisco. In case you're wondering, in case you do want to go down and see the game at Hard Rock Stadium, tickets are still just a mere $4,100. That's your cheapest seat, and that's up in the nosebleed. That's right, just a mere $4,100, and God only knows how much parking there is left. But anyway, Kansas City spotted Tennessee a huge lead. They spotted them, I believe, a 17-7 lead. And Patrick Mahomes pretty much asserted his will. Tyreek Hill had a big game. Kelsey had a big game. The usual cast of characters had a big game. But the biggest part of Kansas City's game was that they held Derrick Henry in check. And they forced Ryan Tannehill to beat them, which we all knew what was going to happen there. Ryan Tannehill had no shot on that big a stage against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Come on now. Now look, he beat New England, he beat Baltimore, all right. But that wasn't him beating those two teams. That was Derrick Henry. The Chiefs move on to their first Super Bowl in 50 years. Not since 1969, 1970 have the Chiefs been in the Super Bowl. Back when Hank Stram was coaching the Kansas City Chiefs. Their opponents, the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco absolutely went in and embarrassed Green Bay once again. Aaron Rodgers, and this is a stat which is really troubling to me. Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback is 1-3 in the NFC Championship game. 1-3. And that one win, they barely beat a third-string quarterback from Chicago, Caleb Haney. They injured Jay Cutler and they could barely be a third-string quarterback to get to the Super Bowl, which they eventually won. So they come in against a good offense, a really good defense, and Aaron Rodgers looked uncomfortable the entire game. He looked vulnerable, and to be quite honest, he looked timid. And the 49ers just ate him right up because it was over by halftime. And yeah, they scored a couple of times, but that was in garbage time. It didn't really matter. Tevin Coleman got hurt for the Niners, so they brought in their backup, who was cut from both Cleveland and Miami from their practice squads. And then 4 teams released him. Let me think of who they were. I want to say it was Philly, Tennessee. I could do this, hang on. Philadelphia, Tennessee, Buffalo, and there was one other team. And he runs for 220 yards. Unbelievable. You can't draw that up. The Niners won big. Yeah, it was over in the first quarter. I know. I understand that. But still, for all intents and purposes, it was over at halftime. So now we have this matchup. Kansas City versus San Francisco. The second best offense in football versus the third best offense in football. One of the best defenses in football against a kind of a defense. Right now, the line, the Chiefs are favored by 1 point, but essentially it's a pick 'em. Let's be realistic here, people. And the over-under for the game is 54.5. As our good friends from Westgate in Las Vegas currently have it right now before I came on the air today. And my pick for the Super Bowl will be, you're going to have to tune in February 1st because I will cover everything Super Bowl during my hour-long show. I'm covering everything Kansas City and everything San Francisco. So if you are fans of both teams, this show is for you. And if you're just a fan of the Super Bowl in general, this show's for you too. On February 1st, hour-long special. Do not miss it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to Simply Sports on this January 22nd, 2020. Once again, happy birthday to my dad. Make sure you tune in to me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, actually. But anyway, CATV6 on the rebroadcast, 1 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 11 o'clock every single Wednesday. Again, I'm on Facebook Live, and again, I am on YouTube, Simply Sports with Andy Williams. And for Michael Flint, Marshall Miles, Brian Oler, thank you very much for tuning in to Simply Sports. And 1, 4, 3.